Hi, today's reading is from Isaiah 6, verses 1 to the end of 13. The first 5 chapters of the book of Isaiah are about the wickedness of Judah. Isaiah is pointing the finger. He's telling us how the people have turned away from God. They're living for themselves. He's pointing out those things. And then in chapter 6, we see Isaiah's vision. And there is an amazing picture. And if you can close your eyes and just think about what that vision, what God looked like, the grandeur, the splendidness, the bigness of God in that vision. But during that vision, Isaiah had a deeper understanding of God's holiness. And I find that when I am in the presence of God and I begin to have a deeper understanding of who God is, of how holy he is, and how unholy I can sometimes feel, because I can see my sin and I can feel overwhelmed by my needs. But because of Jesus and everything that he did for me on the cross, God doesn't see my sin, he just sees Jesus. But my heart is filled with gratitude for what Jesus did for me on the cross. So when Isaiah talks about having unclean lips, it reminds us about what Jesus said in the Gospels, where he talks about what comes out of the mouth is from the heart. And that's true, isn't it? If we're not doing well, those things come out in how we speak. If we're feeling a little bit disconnected from God, disconnected from God's family, our church, I find myself, or I find hearing other people talk about the church, they, not us and we. We need to guard our hearts so that what comes out of our mouth glorifies God and glorifies his church. And then the chapter goes on and he's sort of overhearing this conversation, hearing God saying that they need somebody, and Isaiah says, "Send me." And he says that he hasn't got a clue where God would send him, what the terms and conditions would be of that sending. And that's like that for us, isn't it? When we're in the presence of God, when we feel his love in that way, everything in us wants to say, yes, send me, regardless of what the terms and conditions are. We just want to be doing everything, serving, being with God. And that's the state that Isaiah was in. Regardless of what it meant, he knew the most important thing was to be sent by God. I hope some of that reflection has spoken to you today. The bit that I'm really taking away is that Jesus, he covered our sins, and that when God looks at us, he doesn't see the sin, he doesn't see the unclean lips, because we've accepted Jesus into our lives. We have said yes to him. And so we don't need to be beating ourselves up, because Jesus has done it all.